Are the answer backs back as the D-backs and Pavin Smith walk off the San Francisco Giants in game number 1?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home that big win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about that crazy D-backs walk-off in game number 1 over the Giants. We'll discuss more lineup decisions that the D-backs should consider moving forward, and we'll give you a little update on all of the latest D-back injury news. Jam-packed pod for you guys as always, but want to say thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners. Sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Our goal is to hit 2,000 subs by the All-Star break. So once again, please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's get into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's discuss game number 1 over the San Francisco Giants, because I was at the game and my God, the game itself, nice pace to it. Love the fact that we were out there in basically 2 hours and 10 minutes. Great pace. It was a fun game, and it ended with an electric bang because Pavin Smith came in the 9th inning, pinch hitting for Eugenio Suarez, which was, we give Torey Lovullo a lot of flack on this podcast. Well, Eugenio Suarez has been struggling. We give Torey Lovullo flack sometimes for the platoon splits and how much he cares about platoon power and advantages. Well, in this situation, it mattered. Righty on the mound, pinch hit, lefty Pavin Smith, and he came through in a big way. Off the bat, the sound of the ball, you were like, okay, it's Pavin Smith. It sounds fantastic. It's loud. It's probably the best shot I've ever heard off Pavin Smith's bat, but still it's Pavin. I don't know if it's going to have the power and the distance. Little did you know, dead center pretty much by Pavin Smith, 105.7 miles per hour off the bat, 424 feet, just enough height and distance to give it above the wall, to get it above the wall for the walk-off 2-run shot by Pavin. Would have been a home run, as we like to say. In 29 of the 30 ballparks, the one that it's not a home run is Coors Field. Pavin Smith, some of the weakest power that we currently have on the D-backs. No shade to Pavin, but if you had to rank the sluggers in terms of power department on this team, Pavin Smith would be toward the bottom. And so to hear the ball come off the bat the way it did, to see it travel to dead center with the height and the velo that it had, elite job by Pavin Smith, who continues to play decent for the Arizona Diamondbacks. And to be honest, by D-back standards, he's on fire. His 255 average, 280 OBP, but here's the real kicker. 489 slug for Pavin Smith. Ketel Marte slug, 498. Jock Peterson, 526. Right now, Pavin Smith is third on the team at 489, ahead of a Christian Walker, 466, ahead of even a guy like Blaze Alexander, who has a 414 slugging. Pavin Smith currently has the third highest slugging percentage on the Arizona Diamondbacks, if you could believe that. Great job by Torey Lovullo to go to his bench in that situation. And great job by Torey Lovullo for riding Ryan Nelson for most of this game. I think even though he was so effective in terms of his pitch count, he's still the kind of guy where it's like, okay, you got through 5 2/3 innings or whatever for Ryan Nelson. Maybe we take him out and go to the bullpen. Torrivello did not do that. He trusted Ryan Nelson. And to be honest, you probably could have just kept Ryan Nelson out there. He gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs, but he goes 7 and 2/3. He only throws 80 pitches. Like, I wouldn't even have been mad if Torey Lovullo was like, you know what? Let's let him finish 8 innings, and then we'll go to our bullpen in the ninth. But still, a 7 and 2/3 performance by Ryan Nelson, a career high from him in terms of innings pitched in a ball game. Great job. I thought he looked really good. Was he overpowering in any way? Not really. He had 4 whiffs on 40 swings. His fastball velo was a little bit down, but I thought his command and control was really good. He wasn't all over the strike zone like he is at times. He still threw that fastball and cutter, his 2 main pitches, more than any other pitch, as he likes to do. But I thought he did a really good job of keeping hitters off balance and just really the precision and command I thought was really good for Ryan Nelson. One of the best starts that he's had in his career with the D-backs. So he looked really good. Great job by Pavin Smith in the ninth. And overall, the offense, 4 runs, you get 2 of them in the ninth, but at least more signs of life in game one. You would have liked to see the D-backs capitalize more on their 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position, but you look up and down the lineup, 9 hits total by this D-backs offense. You'd love to see that. Ryan Thompson once again, fantastic for the D-backs out the bullpen. Blaze Alexander in the number 9 hole, really effective for the team. He had 2 hits. He had a 2-out RBI as well. Clutch, bringing home Eugenio Suarez. His slash line on the season, 279, 344, 414. Blaze Alexander is really important when he's right offensively. It feels like he's that spark plug. It feels like he's in that Geraldo Perdomo role right now. The defense has been shaky at times for Blaze, but when his bat is clicking, it feels very Perdomo-esque in terms of being a catalyst for the rest of the guys in this lineup. That's why I'm like, I want Perdomo back, but I don't feel like he's going to be game-changing to this offense because I feel like guys like Blaze Alexander and Kevin Newman have been that spark plug at times for this D-backs offense. And we need Perdomo back. We want him back, but I don't know if he's going to change life for this D-backs offense when a guy like Blaze Alexander continues to swing the bat like he is right now. He did go in a little bit of a slump in the month of May, was one of the worst players on this D-backs team in the month of May. And even after that month, the fact that he still has the slash line that I just mentioned shows you how good he was to start the season. And then also, we did get some pop from guys who have been struggling by the D-backs. Lourdes Gurriel, he got a home run, 8th on the season for Gurriel to start the game. We love to see that. And Eugenio Suarez also had himself a little triple in the gap. We like to see that. Eugenio is someone that we'll talk about in segment number 2 as to whether or not we think he should potentially see the bench a little bit more. And we got a couple more lineup decisions that I believe the D-backs should consider in segment number 2. But if you're looking for any parts for your vehicle because it needs an upgrade or a fix, then the best place you want to go is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. If you like the show, please follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account, Millard.Thomas123 on Instagram for the personal account. At the D-backs game today, showed some video and photos from the game on my Instagram, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's talk about some lineup decisions that the D-backs should consider, because like we saw in game number 2, The D-backs were not afraid to get frisky, or excuse me, that we saw in game number one. The D-backs were not afraid to get frisky with their lineup. We saw Corbin Carroll, not the first time he's been moved down in the lineup this season, with his struggles continuing. He got moved down. He went 0 for 2, 192 average, 280 OBP, 281 slug. And to be honest, it's like, I don't know what else you could do if you're the D-backs. Hitting coaches, get in the lab, watch film. Like, I'm sure they've done everything with Corbin Carroll in terms of his swing and his mechanics. And at some point, Corbin Carroll just has to play better. You can move him down in the lineup to protect him a little bit, not put him in such high pressurized moments and situations. Let him get going at the bottom of the lineup. But right now, he just looks so lost with his confidence at times, and his swing is just always a pop up or a grounder or a strikeout. Like, it just hasn't been pretty for Corbin Carroll in his sophomore campaign. He can still end the season with decent numbers. I was reading an Inside the Dimebacks article earlier today, and it's like, if Corbin Carroll bats like 270 the rest of the year, like, he could still finish the season like a 245, 250 batting average, which is not that bad. And if Corbin Carroll finishes the year, which sounds crazy, with like a 290 batting average, which is something that should be very possible for a guy of Corbin Carroll's stature, he can still finish the year batting like 265, 270, and still salvage his season. But he has to get going right now because it's been such a slow start from him. And if he wants his numbers to at least look decent by the end of the year, he has to go on a tear and start heating up. And then some other lineup decisions that I want to throw out to you guys to see if you think it's crazy or not, because I did not think it was crazy to move Corbin Carroll down in the lineup. I did not think that was crazy considering how bad he's been playing. Gabby to number 2 in the lineup. I don't know if I love that, but also there's not a ton of better options than Gabby. Well, there actually is a couple better options, because for me, one thing that I would like to propose is play Jake McCarthy more and move him up in the lineup. Jake McCarthy, when there's a righty on the mound, he should be batting leadoff with Ketel Marte batting number 2, or vice versa. Like, Jake McCarthy has been playing pretty well for the D-backs this season. Came through in the ninth inning to get the rally started. Like, I really love the way Jake has been swinging his bat this season. And considering Corbin Carroll has been struggling, Jake McCarthy has been the most consistent outfielder by far. I think Jake McCarthy needs to play borderline every single day. Also, considering he's batting like 400 against the lefties this season, like, you can't even say you want to play him because of the platoon splits. Jake McCarthy has been crushing lefties this season. He should be higher in the lineup, and he should be playing almost every day. Randall Grichuk, I don't think he should be playing every day, but he should be playing a little bit more. He already has the splits with Jock Peterson for the DH, but if Lourdes Gurriel continues to struggle, I know he had the home run in game one, but if he does continue to struggle, why not give Gurriel a little bit more time off and let Randall Grichuk play left field? Maybe once or twice a week you give Gurriel the day off. Then the other times he's splitting it with Jock Peterson at the DH spot. We all really like Lourdes Gurriel, but the bat had just not been there the last few weeks. He was an RBI producer to start the season with a whole bunch of power. If he can get back to that mark, then yeah, Lourdes Gurriel is a guy that should be batting like number 3 in this D-backs lineup. But with how he's performing right now, I'm not sure if he should be locked into an everyday role in left field. Love his defense. Still think he's very valuable in that sense. He made a couple good plays in left field in game number 1. I think he had a little sliding diving catch as well in game number 1. Some very good defensive plays overall in game number 1. But Lourdes Gurriel, if his bat continues to struggle going forward, I wouldn't mind seeing Randall Grichuk play a little bit more left field and a little bit more DH. Just get his bat in the lineup a little bit more over Lourdes Gurriel. And Jake McCarthy is a guy that I think his bat has to be in the lineup a little bit more, because he has been a very consistent hitter for the D-backs. Yes, the slugging and the power still isn't there, but like I've always said, if he can bat around 275 with like a 360 OBP, that's a perfect player with his speed. That's all I need from Jake McCarthy, and that's what he's basically doing right now. Eugenio Suarez, he might need to be someone that sits a little bit more going forward and play a Blaze Alexander or a Kevin Newman a little bit more over at third base. Eugenio had himself a good game 1, but like we saw, he's not perfect defensively. He got to the ball on that little Jorge Soler chopper really quick, but throw took Christian Walker off the bag. Thankfully, Walker's the best defensive first baseman in the sport and was able to tag him on the way down. But if Eugenio is not going to be absolutely locked down defensively and his offense continues to struggle, like we saw, you pinch hit and then you win the game. Like, I'm not sure Eugenio should be an everyday player for the D-backs either. Kevin Newman has been swinging a very good bat in the month of May, batted over 300 in the month of May. Blaze Alexander has been one of the best D-backs hitters from start to finish this year. So it's like, why not play those two guys on the left side of the infield if they're the two best offense players that you have right now on the left side of the infield? Eugenio is a guy that might need to sit a little bit more going forward. If Blaze bat continues to pick back up again, right where it was at the beginning of the season, if he gets hot again, yeah, with Kevin Newman playing well right now, then yeah, Eugenio is a guy that should probably sit a little bit more for those two. And then once Perdomo comes back, it is a question if Suarez should even be kept on the roster. Continues to strike out at a super high rate. That's a question for another day. And then also, I think we found our trio in the back end of the bullpen. Ryan Thompson, Justin Martinez, and Paul Sewald. That should be the 7th, 8th, and 9th moving forward. Ryan Thompson came in the game today in the eighth inning. He was really effective. Paul Sewald closed it out. D-backs, uh, or Paul Sewald didn't close out in game number one, but Ryan Thompson, he's been so effective for the D-backs this season. 108 ERA after leaving game number one. Justin Martinez, he has a sub 1 ERA. Then Paul Sewald's like at a 108 right now. Like those three guys collectively have like a 2.2 ERA. It feels like they're nails. It feels like they're absolutely shut down when they come in a game. I think that's the go-to trio for the back end of the bullpen right now. And if Kevin Ginkel can ever figure it out, like the way Bryce Jarvis is pitching right now is pretty well. Like you could see yourself and convince yourself that, you know what, maybe Kevin Ginkel, Bryce Jarvis in that 6th inning, depending on the situation. Then you go Thompson, Martinez, Sewald, 7, 8, 9. All of a sudden, the bullpen doesn't look absolutely horrendous. And maybe the D-backs do have something cooking in the back in the bullpen with their trio of Thompson, Martinez, and Sewald. Now we'll talk about some injury updates and who could be returning soon to the D-backs lineup in segment number 3. And if you believe the D-backs have a chance of winning game number 2 and the rest of the series against the Giants, then why not place a little wager down on FanDuel, because it's a winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. I like to take right now the under on total bases for Corbin Carroll. Hate to admit it. I will take the over on total bases for Ketel Marte, though, when he's hitting the ball and he's hot. Then give me the D-backs money line with their recent play. Doesn't always hit, but when it does, it brings a big smile to my face. And if you want a smile on your face, visit fanduel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's get back into the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about game number 2 and some injury updates for the D-backs. In game 2, we got the battle of the rookies, Blake Walston versus Kyle Harrison. And for Walston, he's kind of making a name for himself if he continues to pitch well. I think he could solidify a spot in the rotation until the rest of the rotation gets healthy, right? With him, Slade, and Ryan Nelson being like the 3 guys to step up right now in the rotation with Gallen, Erod, and Kelly with Gallen, Kelly, and Erod out. I feel like Blake Walston could be the last guy that's kept in the rotation if he continues to pitch well. Ryan Nelson has the most experience, and he's coming off a very good start game number 1 against the Giants. But with how Slade has performed recently, his most recent start was really good, but before that, he was getting crushed. Blake Walston, I think, has a chance to be on the roster longer than a Slade as this rotation gets healthy, and maybe even potentially on the roster longer than a Ryan Nelson. Walston doesn't throw as hard as a Ryan Nelson or a Slade, averaging only around 92 miles per hour on his fastball, but the fastball right now below a 100 batting average against it. He's also a guy that's not dependent on one pitch. He throws his fastball 34% of the time, his curveball 22% of the time, cutter 17%, changeup 14.5%, and then the sweeper 11%. This is a guy that has a 5 pitch arsenal, and that fastball cutter, his hard stuff, is what's most effective to opposing batters. Blake Walston, I think he's looked really good so far with the D-backs, and I want to see if he can continue the recent run he's on, because if he can do that, I think he could be potentially the last fill-in rotation starter left on the roster once this rotation starts to get healthy. I think could be the last one that stays in the rotation, and then also could potentially get moved to the bullpen and be the go-to long reliever instead of maybe potentially a Bryce Jarvis, or maybe you keep a Jarvis and you get rid of a guy like Kyle Nelson if you're looking for that lefty specialist. Maybe you look at a Blake Walston over a Kyle Nelson. So Walston ready to make a name for himself and doing a good job at it right now. And then let's talk about some of those injuries that I mentioned earlier and what's the status on them for the Arizona Diamondbacks. When looking at the rotation, we're still down bad there. It's going to be Ryan Nelson, Slade, and Walston for the foreseeable future, holding it down. Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, it sounds like they're both going to be starting a throwing program pretty soon. Kelly is still on track to return hopefully around the All-Star break. That is what it sounds like right now. That's being reported by Arizona Sports and all the outlets. So hopefully Merrill Kelly by the All-Star break, he's starting to do a throwing program beginning Tuesday. Same with Zach Gallen. Gallen right now, it sounds like he's on the 15-day injured list, and they're praying and hoping nothing longer than the 15 days he's going to spend on the IL. They did not put him on the IL last time he had the same hamstring issue. They decided to, just extend and let him miss a couple of starts. Obviously, that worked for a little bit before he got hurt again. And so this time, I think the D-backs are going to be super extra cautious and make sure 1,000% Zach Gallen is ready to come back before he does come back. But again, those soft tissue injuries, those hamstring injuries, those are the absolute worst. You would almost rather have just like a bone fracture or something, because at least you can identify that, it can heal, and then you're better. You can move forward. With a hamstring or soft tissue injuries, those things could creep up at any time and just cause issues for you the whole season. When I play fantasy football, if I see a guy entering the year is already dealing with hamstring issues, best believe I'm not drafting him. That's why I'm usually out on Mike Evans, because I feel like he always has hamstring issues. And so for Zach Gallen, hopefully those hammies get to 1,015% before he comes back to the D-backs. Then Erod, the other member in the rotation who we have not seen at all this season, has yet to make a debut, an appearance with the D-backs, coming off the shoulder strain. He has been throwing up to 90 feet. Next is 105 feet, then 120 feet, then flat ground, then mound, then bullpen. Like, that is the progression for Erod. He's another guy, just like Merrill Kelly, on that all-star timeline. So it sounds like right after the all-star break, as we always say, the D-backs can just tread water until the all-star break. They have a chance to basically flip their 2023 season, right? Last year, first half, tied with the Dodgers for the division lead. Second half, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball and squeaked into the postseason. This year, one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball in the first half. Right now, the D-backs are middle of the pack in that NL wild card, close to the bottom. But in the second half of the season, once this team gets fully healthy, they could heat up, maybe still squeeze into the postseason, but you at least feel good about this team entering the playoffs, because right after the All-Star break, if we have Gallen, Kelly, Erod, Monty, and Fott, best believe I'm going to be all the way back on the D-backs bandwagon. And after seeing the D-backs take game number 1 against the San Francisco Giants, they are looking good once again in the wild card race. Like, I have been down on this team. I have done podcasts in the last week where I said they sucked, and I still stand by that. D-backs are still 4 games below 500. But even with that being said, 1 game out of the NL wildcard race, absolutely insane to think about. And if you could just stay within 1 game like you are right now, I don't care if it's 5 games below 500, as long as you're within a couple games of the wildcard race, as the rotation gets healthy, best believe I do think this team can take off in the second half, but you're also going to need your offense to step up. And a guy like Geraldo Perdomo, who a lot of people believe can make an instant impact in the D-backs lineup, he could be returning soon. He's doing some rehab games right now, has been in the ACL. He's going to be in Reno this week playing some games. It sounds like Geraldo Perdomo, Jerry could be making his return to the D-backs lineup as soon as next week. Then Alek Thomas might still be a couple weeks away. He has yet to run bases. He is getting live at bats. He is running forward, but not at full speed. Alek Thomas still sounds like a couple weeks away. And offensively, he's probably not going to be game changing in the lineup, but defensively, his glove is so important. You move Corbin Carroll back to right field, D-backs defense back on lock. And if not Corbin Carroll, and if Alek Thomas can bring any offensive flair or firepower as well, with knowing what his glove can do, that would be incredible to the D-backs fortune. So very anxious and excited to see all the D-backs players return from injury. Was still a couple of weeks away from at least one player returning, but the D-backs starting to get healthy. Their offense starting to play a little bit better, at least 9 hits in 4 straight games. Are the D-backs turning it around? Still too small of a sample size to say that, but at least the vibes are starting to pick up just a little bit. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked on Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.